Picture this. While you're scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., stressed about your credit card bill, dealing with anxiety that seems to come from nowhere, there's a community just a few hours away where depression rates are nearly non-existent, where people live to 85 on average, where communities are so tight-knit that mental health crises are almost unheard of. And here's the kicker: they've been doing this for over 300 years, completely rejecting almost everything we consider progress. Today, we're diving into why the Amish might have been right about everything, and why modern science is finally starting to prove it. The Amish advantage. Let's start with something that'll blow your mind. The Amish have a depression rate of about 1-2%. Let me put that in perspective for you. The average American has a depression rate of around 8.5%. That's 4 times higher than a community that lives without electricity, cars, or smartphones. But wait, it gets better. According to research from the University of Pennsylvania, published in the Journal of Religion and Health, Amish communities show significantly lower rates of anxiety, suicide, and even substance abuse. We're talking about people who have essentially said no thanks to the modern world, and they're thriving. Now, here's where Gandhi comes in. Remember his famous quote? "The world has enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not everyone's greed." The Amish have been living this principle for centuries. They call it jealous and yielding to God's will, but practically, it means living within your means, focusing on community over individual gain, and finding contentment in simplicity. And the science is starting to back this up in ways that are honestly kind of shocking. Dr. Tim Kasser at Knox College has spent decades studying materialism and well-being. His research, published in multiple peer-reviewed journals, shows that people who prioritize materialistic values, wealth, image, fame, consistently report lower well-being, more anxiety, and weaker social connections. But here's what really gets me about the Amish approach. They don't just reject materialism, they've created systems that naturally prevent greed from taking root. Take their barn-raising tradition. When someone needs a new barn, the entire community shows up. No payment, no contracts, just community. Harvard researchers studying social capital have found that communities with strong reciprocal relationships like this have better mental health outcomes across the board. And their relationship with technology? It's not about being anti-progress, it's about being intentional. They ask one simple question before adopting any technology: will this strengthen or weaken our community? If a technology isolates people or creates unnecessary wants, they say no. If it serves genuine needs without creating dependencies, they might say yes. Think about that for a second. When's the last time you asked yourself whether something you wanted would actually make your life better, or just more complicated? The modern counterargument. Now, before we all start planning our move to Lancaster County, let's be honest about the other side of this story. Critics of the Amish lifestyle raise some pretty valid points, and we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we ignored them. First, there's the question of individual freedom. Dr. Stephen Nolt, a scholar of Amish studies at Elizabethtown College, points out that Amish communities can be restrictive in ways that many of us would find suffocating. Personal choice, career freedom, even something as simple as choosing your own clothes, these are all limited by community standards. And then there's the medical piece. While the Amish do live longer on average, they also face certain health challenges that modern medicine could easily address. Some communities have higher rates of genetic disorders due to limited gene pools, and there are documented cases where rejection of modern medical interventions has led to preventable deaths. There's also the economic argument. Modern economists point out that the Amish lifestyle, while sustainable for small communities, couldn't possibly support the global population we have today. The agricultural methods they use, while environmentally friendly, require significantly more land per person than modern farming techniques. But here's where it gets interesting. Some researchers argue that the apparent mental health benefits of Amish communities might have nothing to do with their lifestyle choices and everything to do with selection bias. The argument goes that people who choose to stay in highly structured, traditional communities might naturally be predisposed to finding happiness in structure and simplicity. And then there's the question of whether their happiness is real, or whether it's just the absence of alternatives. When you don't know what you're missing, are you truly content, or are you just unaware? Finding the middle path. Here's where things get really interesting, and where Gandhi's wisdom becomes almost prophetic. You see, the question isn't really whether we should all become Amish, it's whether we can learn from their approach to distinguish between need and greed. Recent research from the University of Rochester has identified what they call intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations. Intrinsic motivations, things like personal growth, relationships, and community contribution consistently lead to higher well-being. Extrinsic motivations, wealth, status, appearance lead to what researchers call hedonic adaptation. You get the thing you want, feel good briefly, then need something bigger to feel good again. Sound familiar? It's exactly what Gandhi was warning about. The Amish have accidentally created a society almost entirely based on intrinsic motivations. Their success isn't about rejecting modernity, it's about rejecting the infinite want creation machine that modern consumer culture has become. But here's what's brilliant about this. You don't have to move to a farm to apply these principles. Dr. Sanyal Yubamersky's research at UC Riverside shows that people who practice gratitude, invest in relationships, and set intrinsic goals report significantly higher life satisfaction regardless of their income or possessions. And this is where the Amish model becomes genuinely revolutionary. They've proven that human beings can be deeply fulfilled without participating in the endless cycle of want creation and consumption that drives our economy. They've shown that Gandhi was right, there is enough for everyone's need. But they've also shown us something else, that community, purpose, and contentment aren't accidents. They're choices. They're systems. They're practices that have to be intentionally cultivated, because the default setting of human nature and definitely the default setting of our economy is toward more, bigger, faster, now. Questions. So here's what I want you to think about. If happiness research consistently shows that relationships, purpose, and gratitude matter more than income or possessions, why do we organize our entire society around the pursuit of more stuff? And here's a bigger one. If a community of people can live fulfilling lives while consuming a fraction of what the average American consumes, what does that say about what we actually need versus what we think we need? But maybe the most important question is this. In a world where we have unprecedented access to information, entertainment, and opportunities, why are rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness higher than ever? What are we trading for all this convenience and choice? I'm not suggesting we all need to give up our phones and start churning butter, but what if we started asking the same question the Amish ask about technology? Will this strengthen or weaken my community? Will this serve a genuine need or create an artificial want? The parting thought. You know what's fascinating? The Amish have accidentally discovered what positive psychology researchers call eudaimonic well-being, happiness that comes from meaning and virtue rather than pleasure and comfort. They've created the conditions for human flourishing not by having more, but by wanting less. And in doing so, they've preserved something we're all desperately searching for in our Instagram feeds and Amazon carts: the feeling of being enough. Gandhi saw this coming a century ago. He understood that the same drive that creates innovation and progress could also create insatiable hunger. The Amish chose satisfaction over ambition, community over competition, presence over productivity. And while we've built rockets and mapped genomes, they've built something equally remarkable: a society where people genuinely like their lives. Maybe the real revolution isn't in the next breakthrough or the next purchase. Maybe it's in the radical act of saying, this is enough. If this shifted your perspective even a little bit, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What's one thing you have right now that you're genuinely grateful for? And if you're curious about more research on happiness and simple living, make sure to subscribe. We're diving deep into the science of well-being in ways that might surprise you. Until next time, maybe try asking yourself, what do I actually need today? You might be surprised by the answer.